Okay, everyone, we'll make a start then. So welcome, everyone. Good evening. Thank you very much for spending your Thursday night for an hour with myself and the rest of the panelists. Thank you for signing up. My name is Gary Talbot. I'm a science lead practitioner and also head of e-learning at a school in the Northwest. And our webinar today is all about engaging and assessing using technology. I know a lot of us will be under lockdown, especially in the UK. I'm not sure about other countries, but we've been teaching, or a lot of us have been teaching remotely now for quite a number of weeks, and in the UK that's going to continue for quite a few more weeks after the half-term holidays. So it's been a bit of a change in adapting. We did the same obviously last year with the lockdown as well. So we wanted to just share with you some different things that some of you may have seen before, some that you might be brand new to you. And we're just going to share them with you and hopefully give you some ideas for you to go away. Myself and Avril set up TNT during the last lockdown because we wanted to sort of give something back and share things with teachers all across the world. And we've just been amazed by the amount of people that we've got interested in joining our webinars and taking part and watching our YouTube videos. So thank you for joining us. Avril, just want to introduce yourself.
Hi everybody, my name is Avril Townsend. I'm a former head of science and I'm currently a lead practitioner of science. I've been teaching for almost 20 years. So just like Gary said, really grateful to have our panelists on board with us tonight. So I'm sure that if you've not used some of these tools this evening, you'll be willing to give them a go and you'll probably find them really useful in your current practice. So this evening we've got our usual Q&A function. So if you've got any specific questions that you'd like to ask myself, Gary, or any of the other panelists, if you just want to pop them into the Q&A and we will address those at the end. And then if you've got any ideas that you want to share that you might want to share with us and other panel participants, if you want to pop that in the chat and just have a general discussion with the other participants that are in the webinar this evening. But we'll have time at the end to look at specific questions if you want to ask any of us any questions. So I'm going to hand you over to our first panelist, which is Ricky Hallam. So thank you very much, Ricky. He's going to talk you through some fantastic online tools that he's been using in his lessons. So over to you, Ricky.
Hi, everybody. Yeah, I'm Ricky. I've been teaching up in the Northeast for the last 4.5 years, and the last 2 or 3 we've been using the interactive online tools quite a lot, as we've got iPads at our school. So it's been really good to actually use these and some others. So the first one that I'm going to show you is one that you are already using. So I'll just share my screen very quickly on that. And that's the quizzes link. So if I quickly give this a refresh, there's a few different things that you can see with this. So well done to all of those people that, oh, impressive, 100% marks. Well, very, very impressive. So you can see what's going on basically there as an overview. You could look at each question and see which one was done particularly well. So if this was in a lesson, you might have asked about a quote in English or a particular key term or something in science maybe. And you can see that some of the questions have been done better than others. For example, question 6 has been done really well. You can go back and have a look at what that was and see that most people know what the capital of Australia is. Brilliant. You can see how everybody's done. And if you're doing this a lesson, you might share the screen and show a little bit of a leaderboard for different people as well. So if Gary, you could show the PowerPoint again, please. Brilliant, thanks very much. Now another tool that you might be able to use is something called Socrative. This is another free tool, and there's a few different things that you can do with this. So again, you can set your questions. You're able to see which question's been done particularly well, in this case 2. It might be that you're looking across and finding that question 1's not been done very well by anybody. So whatever the content was there, you're going to possibly reteach that and then ask the questions again later. Or alternatively, you can look across to the students and see, in this case, this particular picture, Kieran Gibbs didn't do particularly well at all, so he's going to have to do a bit of work on the whole topic. You can also use this as a exit ticket, where you can launch a very quick question, ask one question, and then the students would log on to Socrative student, put in my case, my room number here, and that question would come up. They'd answer it straight away, and then I can see what they've put for that particular exit ticket. So it might be that you just want to check something on that lesson. You're doing a bit of a plenary, and you want to just see how people are feeling towards the end of it. It might just be something as simple as, rate your understanding 1 to 10, and people can give that. On all of these slides, you'll see a YouTube reference link. So if you want to go and check a little bit more out about it, feel free to do that. These slides are going to be sent out at the end. So if we can go on to the next slide, which is about Kahoot, please. So this one I've been using for quite a few years now, and I've used this where we haven't had iPads and people have just had mobile phones. So you can set the quiz, go to kahoot.it, I think it is, when you send the link out to the students, and then you could be projecting this either on your screen if you're doing this as an interactive lesson, a live lesson over the internet, or if you're in the classroom, you can project the question onto the board, and their phones, tablets, whatever else, turn into a gamepad. So you've got the questions there. When was this particular company founded? You've got the numbers, and they just click on their screens which one it is. It's very quick. It's easy to use in terms of searching for the different quizzes. I've been able to find pretty much a quiz for whatever I've wanted already there, but if there's something that you don't want, it's very, very simple to set up yourself and assign the quizzes. And the students that I've done it with generally enjoy it. It's a bit of competition, and it generally gets them quite animated as to what the answer is, and if the question isn't very logical, they'll very quickly point it out to you. And I've used that, and it's been great feedback for me to be able to change those questions and the answers if needs be, if they don't fully understand what's going on or how I've perhaps phrased it. So again, YouTube link. If you could carry on to the next one, Quizler. This one I've been using more this year and last year, particularly with the drive to know more, remember more, and do more in the UK, where we've been working really hard on the recall of students. In particular, some of the key terms, like being a science teacher and a chemistry teacher, there's a lot of key terms that students really struggle to remember to start off with, and they become bombarded with them. So what I've done is set up different sets of information on these that they can look at it. Within the Quizlet, once you've got it set up like a flip card sort of thing, where you'd have the definition on one side and the key term on the other, what the students can do is you can share it, and then they can test themselves just by matching things up, and they become quite competitive at that as well. There's a leaderboard that goes with it, and they try and beat the time. So I've set a time myself and said, right, try and beat that, and it's amazing how quickly the students will try and do that. You could use this for yourself, set them up, and likewise I've asked the students to set their own definitions up, check them, look them up, and set their own different cards up, and then share them with each other as a way of helping them revise for tests and different things like that. So next slide, please. This is Showbie that we've been using at our school for quite a while now, and it's a way of sharing out different files. So if you haven't got something like Microsoft Teams or Google Sheets and things like that, it's another way of just being able to drop the files straight in. So with the free version, I think you can have 10 assignments open at any one time, but then you can archive those and use another one. So you might have a class of 30 students, get those to sign up for it. And then what you can do is put your worksheet on there. They can fill the worksheet in, and you can just go through it and mark it as if it was paper. So it does mean that you can become a little bit less paper orientated and put everything onto an online sort of cloud function. The students can then see what your feedback is. And there's a few different ways of leaving feedback on this. You can just write straight over it. You can leave a voice note on the top of it to explain it. If you wanted to give them a bit of a hint on the worksheet, I've left voice notes on there just to explain how to do it. And I've also started using the screen record function, so you can work your way through it and do the first 3-4 questions as examples, and the students be able to follow that video and then carry it on, which seems to have worked really well recently. We've been covering some tricky stuff, and it's definitely helped them, and they've been very appreciative of it as well. So the next one is about Whiteboard Chat. I likened this to being able to walk around the classroom. So we've not always been able to do that in the UK recently with the different COVID restrictions when the students have been in school. But rather than being able to walk around looking over people's shoulder and seeing what they're writing, this app allows you to do that. So everybody can join whiteboard.chat, you give them the link, set it up, and then you can ask the questions over Zoom or whatever platform you're using, and you can see what their answers are. You can go onto their whiteboard and give them a little bit of a hint if you don't want to talk over Zoom to them, if they need that little bit more individual feedback. But it gives you a good way of checking that everybody's engaged and where the misconceptions possibly are with regards to that. And then finally, Poplet is another one that I've used, which is on the next slide. Poplet's a way of digitally putting mind maps together. And this I've started using more after one of the previous TNT webinars with John Tate about making schema and just going over things. So you could take your individual terms in the middle and then just keep spreading it further and further out, just so that you can see what the links are between the different subjects. This has been great for them to be able to organise them and see where things are going. Again, you've got the YouTube links on the last 7 slides that if you wanted to go back and look at some of these and see what you can do in a little bit more detail, it's there for you to do. So that's me done. So I'll pass over to Gary and Avril, who are going to talk to you about Spiral.
Thank you very much, Ricky. And like I said, there's the things on there to use that you can use them as assessments. You can use them in lots and lots of different ways. And we didn't want to go into them to too much detail because obviously we wanted to share as many ideas as we can. That's why we've put the links on. We're going to send those links out to you so you can have a look at those if you've not used those before. One of the things myself and Avril have been using over the last few weeks, Avril introduced it to me, is something called spiral.ac. And it's all free, I think, at the moment with lockdown. I'm not sure if they're going to start charging for it, but I know definitely it's free at the moment. Avril, you just want to talk through the different modes of this one?
Yeah, I've just found this does a lot of what I want to do during the remote learning. So one thing I can use it for is to track engagement from start to throughout the lesson. So there's 5 different features, and when you go to www.spiral.ac, it's really well set out. There's a YouTube video for it to describe how you use each section. But the first one I'd recommend that you use is the quickfire light. So that just enables you to do some quickfire questions verbally to the group, to your class. And then the pupils just sign up with a little code so that you direct them to the website, and then they just have like a 4 or 5 letter code to join. And then you can just ask verbal questions, and then the pupils' responses come up on screen. Now, the best thing about it is that you can mark the responses. So if the answer is correct, if you mark one correct, it will mark any of the others that are spelt in that way. So the pupils get a little star as feedback for that. And if you're not happy with a response or they need to improve on it, there's an option to click improve, and then that'll send it back to the pupil. So I've found that works really, really well. If you want to plan your questions, there's the quick fire section where you can plan your questions and type them out. You can have multiple choice, you can have open-ended questions, or you can also have insert diagrams and get them to annotate diagrams and label things like that. In the discuss section, I've just been using that over the past couple of weeks. You can actually insert like your PowerPoint or Google Slides, and then for each slide you can add a question that's pre-prepared that the pupils will see. So the pupils get to download the presentation that you've got, but they also can answer the question, and you can share pupils any good responses and get it up on screen, and then get pupils to peer assess or improve on responses. And I've not used the team up one yet, but the last one, the clip, you can insert a YouTube video, and then you can type your questions in at regular intervals throughout. And again, you get to see all the pupils' responses, and you can mark them and give feedback. And at the end, you can download, for all the features, all the different modes, you can download the responses at the end, so you can see which pupils have reacted and engaged with every question. You can see the scores, and then what I usually do with that is then just reward those children that have engaged in every opportunity, and then also the ones who've performed the best as well. So if you want to give that a go, I highly recommend it. It's worked brilliant for me.
I just wanted to, we'll just give you a quick show of that. Let me just open this, Avril. So Avril, I created a quick fire one where I've pre-done the questions. Like Avril said, you can have different options. So the first one, for example, is the largest country, just a multiple choice. And when I click go, all the students can then start to answer it. So Avril signed into this one, and she can give an answer, and I can reveal the answers, and I can also show who's answered that as well. So I can keep it anonymous if I want to, and I can see that Avril's answered that one. She's gone red, so it means she's got it wrong, and I pre-put the answer already in for this one already. Skip to the next one. This one's one where it would be a number, and it's a question, an open question, but it's just with a closed answer in it. And you can see the answers hidden. I can reveal the answer. Avril's put 2021, and I can click either correct. If it was correct and I've already put the answer in, it would go green, and I would click improve, and it sends it back to her to have another try at that question. And she can then edit the answer, put something else in, send it back. Obviously, if you've got a class of 30 or 50, you'll get all the screens popping up, and you'll be able to just verbally praise pupils as well. Another one is a poll question, so you can ask them about a particular poll. This is one's about superpowers. I can reveal the answers. Avril would like to be able to fly. And then the last one is just an open question where they can write an answer to it. The capital of the Game of Thrones. And Avril's typing away there, and I can click reveal answer, and she's put London, and I can say improve, and it sends it back to her. If it was correct, I'd just click correct, and any other pupil that had London, it would automatically mark those correct. So that's just one use for it. There are a lot of other uses for it as well, which Avril said. And when you log on to the home screen, you'll see, like Avril mentioned, you've got the different options, and it gives you a YouTube video for each one.
It's just worth mentioning as well, you can save your class codes on there as well, so the pupils, they log in using the same code. So I've got all my classes saved there, so I can go back into it and check the engagement at different intervals. Okay,
thank you, Avril. And now we're going to hand over to Chris, who's going to talk about something called Mote. Over to you, Chris.
Thank you very much. Good evening, everyone. My name's Chris Germain, and I'm a secondary business teacher down in the southwest in Gloucestershire. Been down here for 20 odd years, and been down here for 20 odd years. So I want to talk to you about Mote. Now, many of you will have maybe heard of Mote anyway, but I came across it in November, where a colleague introduced it to me, and you know, I was a bit suspicious at the start, and I thought, well, what's in it for me and what's in it for the students? And suddenly, when I tried it, I thought, oh, it's going to be a bit of a pain. It's going to be a rigmarole to get it going, but actually, it's very, very simple. What's in it for me is it saves me time. It saves me a lot of time writing maybe the same thing over and over again on students' work. And when you're giving, you know, in-depth personalized feedback on exam questions, that takes a bit of time. And actually for the students, it's a bit more engaging. So they're listening to your feedback, and they can maybe understand it or take it in a little bit easier through an audio way rather than written. But you know, we'll have a look. And what I wanted to do tonight is just maybe spend a few moments just going through with you in case you haven't heard of Mote. So I'm just going to share my screen with you just to have a little look. So which one am I going to do, Gary? I'm going to, Right, let's have a little look here. Right, so with Mote, what you need to do, at the moment it only works in in Chrome. So you can, in Chrome, if you type in, if you go to Google, to Chrome, and you type in Mote, for example, and it will come up hopefully here, Mote Voice, that's the one that I was looking for, and you can add the extension to Chrome. Okay, so I've already got it installed, so I don't want to uninstall it, but you can see here where it says remove from Chrome. If you haven't got it installed, it will say add to Chrome. Okay, so it's very, very simple and straightforward from that point of view. What you can see when you've got it installed is you've got a little sort of squiggly M up in the top right hand corner, and what that does, it allows you to leave voice notes in a document. And I found that you can leave a voice note in any Google Docs or Google Sheets or slides, but you can also leave it in Word as well. And I'll just give you a quick demo on how to, how it works. There are two versions. There's a free version, which gives you unlimited 30-second snippets of voice recordings, or there's a paid version that give you unlimited 90-second voice recordings. And my school, we've upgraded to this, or I've upgraded to it, so I've got the full version, and it works quite well. I say I really like it. So for example, in a Google Doc, you've got your Google document open, and it's the same process for all Google documents really. So you've got your Google document, you want to give some feedback to a student on what they've done, you simply highlight the bit that you need, that you want to give feedback on. Here you click on the plus, and you can see somewhere here you've got the squiggly M. You simply click on it, and I'm not sure if it'll work with it so lagged. You click on it, start that again. You click, and you can see you've got a counter, and you can give a bit of feedback. Really good start to the assignment. You've got a little bit of thought to your introduction. It's well crafted, etc., etc. You click on done. That now is embedding your feedback into the document. And you simply, well, if you want to look at what you've written, if you've upgraded to the full version, you can click on there, and it loads what you've written, and you can see, you can see it, it's transcribed it for you, and you can make any changes. Personally, I don't bother with that, because the whole process for me is the students listen to what I say. So you're happy with what you've written, you just click on comment, and that then embeds your comment into that document. You then share it with, or share the Google Docs back with the student, or it's it's certainly embedded in the document that they've shared with you rather, and you move on to the next bit. So it's very, very straightforward. They'll get a ping to say, oh, some voice, some Mote has been left for you, and they can listen to the feedback and act on it. And what I found from my students is that they've really liked it. Very often they say, oh, thanks for the feedback, sir. It's really good, really useful, and what have you. So, it's the same process in any Google Doc. So you've got a Google, there's a Google document. You can do exactly the same thing in a Google slideshow. You can see here, there's the Mote, and you click to start. It's now recording, and you've got 90 seconds of recording. Once you've finished it, you press the squiggly M again. It's now thinking about it, and you can insert it. And what it will do is it will insert on the page that you're working on. So there is your Mote up at the top. And again, because the student shared a document with you, they get notification, and that is, you know, saved on that document, and the students can go back. I've recently done a piece of group work with students who are obviously working from home, and they've been working collaboratively on a Google slideshow. They've shared it with me, so I can go and work on it with them, and we can leave each other voice messages, you know, on the feedback or the progress of the work, for example, which works quite well, you know, if they're doing it over, you know, outside of a normal lesson time. There is something, for example, well, there is something called Mote Pad, and Mote Pad is a tool that you can use anywhere really. So you'll see the squiggly M in the top. You can see here that you've got your, you know, your where you record something. If you just do a bit of a recording, maybe you want to say something that you're going to be using all, you know, a lot of the time, so you're going to be repeating yourself. You can record a piece of feedback, and that piece of feedback is here, so you can go in and you can edit it should you want to, and look at it, and then just save that there. And if that's a Mote that you want to keep and use over and over again, you can click on Save As, and you can give it a name. So, you know, I'm going to call it Feedback 1, for example, and click on Save. That is now saved to your Mote Pad, so that you could go into a document. I've just closed them down, haven't I? You can go into a document, and you can, if I just trying to open a document that I've got here. Oops, that's the wrong one. There we go. And you know, you can go into a student's work, for example, and my screen's not big enough. And you can move that around here. You can go into add a private comment. There's a bit of a lag, I think. If you then long click on the Mote, your saved Motes should come up. I think because we're doing it remotely, there's a bit of a lag, to be honest. So it's not quite working, but trust me, it does work. It does work. Always trust a teacher. Anyway, that's not working today, but it does work. So, you know, you can insert a Mote that you can use time and time again. And the beauty of this, I think, is you can actually go in and check who has listened to your Motes. So you can see here, I can go in and say, right, let's have a little look who's listened to the things that I've said. And let's go down here. For example, a student has seen it and listened to it. Okay, and you can filter by noticed or unnoticed. So all the ones that have been listened to or seen, you can have a little, you can see how they are here. So you can check the progress. So you can say, you know, if a student hasn't listened to what you've given back to them, then you're able to go and chase that student up and say, what have you done in order to improve your work, or have you acted on the advice that you've been given, etc. So I think, you know, that's a very whistle-stop tour around Mote. On the slides that will be sent out, there are some links. There are 7 or 8 links to Mote in a minute, and that's to Mote's website, to a YouTube site that gives you handy hints on how to use Mote just in literally a minute. And it's very, very easy to pick up. And I can honestly say, from marking, a set of A-level questions, it has cut my marking time by half. And you can see there's some links there. But it's revolutionized my marking. I don't necessarily dread marking as much as I do, or as much as I did. It saved me a lot of time. I can do other things and get out when we need to. Okay, I think that's me for Mote. I'm going to pass over to Fraser, who's going to talk about visualizers.
Thanks very much, Chris. Well, I'm just going to see if I can share my full screen. Super. Right, I'll crack on. Hi all. Sorry about that. Hopefully we're good to go now. So yeah, as Chris mentioned, my name's Fraser from Elementary Technology. Elementary Technology, we basically deal with supporting schools with classroom technology. You name it, we pretty much do it. And my job there is to basically help everyone out who buys our technology. We've seen a real sort of gap for teachers who are buying technology and then using the technology. And I'm there to sort of fill that gap, really. There's always the issue where schools have to take on a lot of new technology. Even with lockdown, people are having to get used to Google Classrooms, Teams and everything like that. And it's a lot to learn. So as the training manager, that's what I'm here for, really, is just to support people as best I can to make sure they're not just able to use their tech, but actually get the most out of it. I think I saw a stat the other day, which was pretty bad for screens like this one behind me. I think it's something like 18% gets used. So we've got these fantastic pieces of kit in the classroom, but people can't use them because they're not fully trained up. So that's what I do. Right, so what we're talking about tonight is these things. So visualizers. So visualizers in the classroom is something we've had for many years, and I think we all know them and love them pretty well. But sort of over the last 6 months or so, they've just been collecting dust because many teachers are maybe teaching from home, or they've got a split classroom of 10 in the class and 15 at home. So we're in very different times at the moment with lockdown. But actually, it's the perfect time to be using your visualizer. So I'm going to talk about a few different ways you can use your visualizer in general, but also how you can use them now, straight away in lockdown with the students who are at home or in the classroom or mixed. So one of the ways I really like to use my visualizer is being able to basically model a problem before it happens. So here's a classic one that I have. So just under my visualizer, I've got my letters. And in class, this is something I see an awful lot, is we get our E's the wrong way round and we get our B's and D's mixed up. So before I start my work with my class, what I want to be able to do is actually model to them how to do it right. We know the problem that's going to come up, so let's tackle it before we start the work. So what I can do here with my visualizer is you can actually record what you do in your visualizer. So if I tap record, what's really nice about this is then I can go over to my piece of paper and I can model how I'm writing. So for instance, I can show them this is how you do UE. And then recently we've been learning a trick in the classroom with the B's and the D's to make sure we get those right. So with the B, and then we use an E, and then the D, what we can remember then to get our letters the right way around is it's B, E, D. And it actually looks like a bed. So that's something we've been doing in class. What I can do, oh, that's a bit loud, 2 seconds. I can model how I'm writing. Never like the sound of my own voice. So with this, what I can do now is I can just come down as it starts to auto play, come down here and go on to repeat. So I can now get my students started on their work, they can get going. And instead of having to remember what we've gone over and try and remember the B's and the D's and everything like that and the E's, it's up here on the board and it'll just loop round and round and round. And that'll really cement it in their heads. Anyone that needs to ask can just look straight up on the screen and they'll just see it going over and over. So that's one thing I like to use my visualizer for. We just come out of here. show you a few others. Right, let's find this one. So what I've got here is a circuit board with a light and a battery. And normally I would have the actual thing, but I'm not in class at the moment, I'm at home. So I just printed one out and hoped you wouldn't notice. So what I've got here is the actual thing, the physical thing. But what I want to do with my students is I want to show them how you draw one of these, how you do a diagram of one, and how you get it right. So I can flick between my whiteboard here, and I can quite simply grab a pen. And we can look back to the visualizer and say, okay, well, we've got a battery. So I can show my class how I make a battery. And then I can carry on. And then I'm going to put this in. I might say to my student, right, can you guess what that's about? Actually, we can go back to here. So it's either going to be the battery or the switch. So we know it's the switch, works like a door, closes, and then that, when closed, will turn on the lights. I'm sure you can do a much neater version of this. There we go. So another nice trick, you can just switch between the visualizer back to the whiteboard, compare and contrast what you've got up there, but work through it with your students. And what's nice about this is what I was saying at the start, is that you actually don't need to wait until they're back in the classroom to be able to do this. With a visualizer, there are two ways that you can start using it now. One of those ways is to take it home with you. So if you're teaching from home a lot, it's actually really simple to take a visualizer home with you. All they need, apart from obviously taking the visualizer, you just need to take the power cable as well. And then it's got a USB cable that should be plugged in. So if you go into your classroom and just take the power lead out and then the USB lead out of your laptop, this should be ready to go home with you. Once you get home, pop it down on your table next to your laptop, take the USB and plug it back in. Nice thing about that is it only goes into one hole, so you can't go wrong. And then same with the power cable, only goes into one hole, plug it into the wall. And because you're there already on your home laptop, all the software's there, so you're good to go. So what you can do now is you can share content out to students who are at home. So for instance, let's say I've got this at home with me today and I want to share it with the students. I might want to share this with them under the visualizer so we can look at the different components. But at home, I want them on a piece of paper to be drawing out what it should look like and following my model as I do it. So there's loads of things we can do with them at home at the moment, and it really is simple to take them home. One of the other options as well is if you're doing a bit of split learning. So I know a lot of teachers at the moment are spending a week in school and then a week at home. So if you're actually in school and you've got maybe 5-10 students in here with you, but then at home as well, you've got another 20 students learning, and it's, I think we've all realised it's a difficult place to be, trying to teach two lots of students in different places in different environments, but the same curriculum. Well, the visualizer can actually help you out quite a lot. So what we found with a lot of our schools now is what they're doing is they're holding their normal lessons. So they'll have, maybe 5 students in the classroom, as we said before, and they'll do a Teams call or a Zoom call or a Google call, and then they'll get all the students together. So we'll have 20 joining on the call, and then we'll have 5 in the classroom. And what you can do now is if I share my screen and click on my software to bring up my visualizer, then I've got all my students in the class looking at whatever I do here under the visualizer. But at the same time, I've got everyone at home looking at what I'm doing under the visualizer. So for instance, the other day, my students were making one of these, a boat. So they all had to make a boat. We had to look at the different materials. So we had that under the visualizer so they could work out, what materials are going to float, what materials won't float, why we might use something that isn't waterproof but doesn't float, all those sorts of things. And we were able to do that under the visualizer because I had 5 there with me watching it on the screen and another 20 at home watching it on their laptops, iPads, you name it. So as I said, it can be used straight away now. So take it home, use it in class, link it up with Zoom or Teams or Google. As I said before, it's really, really simple to do. And, you know, there's so many things you can do with it. For instance, you know, I quite like to use it, for instance, for like a visual overload. So this is what I would call a visual overload. Every time I look at this, it just stresses me out because there's so much to look at. And I know a lot of my students feel the same. So what we can do when we've got it under the visualizer is, again, I can just use my tools. And I can come here to the spotlight, change that to a better shape. And now I can just choose the certain ones that I want to talk about and have everything else grayed out. And obviously this works for loads of different things. Sometimes there's so much content that it can be overstimulating. So with this, I can just sort of focus in on a particular area and grey everything else out. As well as just completely greying it out, you know, some visualizers can actually go semi-transparent. So I have actually got the whole image, but I can just focus in on specific parts. Now, I think another really good example of this, actually, if I can find a piece, is when you're working on something like this. So, you know, here we've got an awful lot of content that I want the students to look through, and it's quite a lot to take in. So again, with your visualizer, you can just pop the blind up. Once you've got the blind up, I can then start to roll down that blind. So now we can start to look at how to answer the 20-mark question. And after that, we can go on to reading the question and planning, reflecting, and so on. And I can work through it slowly without it being too overloading on the students, which is quite nice. But as I said, you know, there's a million different things you can do under the visualizer. I shan't run through them all, but for instance, you know, I can pop my diagram under here. I can nice and quickly grab a pen, and I can tap into here, pop in Skelt, and then pop it into the right box that I want it in. And I can work through this with my students. I can be asking them, the ones that are online, you know, what do you think goes in the third box down? I can ask the ones in the class to come up and have a go. It's a great way of bringing everyone together as well. So I've got some students' work here. I can easily pop that under the visualizer. Just going to zoom out for this one a bit. Nice big document. So I can pop that under there. And again, we can be marking live. So, you know, students can share their work with me. We can then start to look through that live and we can mark it together. So it's a really good tool to be able to mark students' work as you go. So as I said, there's millions of things you can be doing with your visualizer. But I think the real important thing from me today is just realizing, you know, yes, it might have been collecting dust in the classroom for the last 6 to 8 months, but actually, you know, you can take it home, start using it at home. As I said, it's really, really simple to do. Just grab the device itself, take the 2 cables, plug it back in where you found it when you get home, and then you're good to go essentially. And it really can help with the lessons. Now, as I mentioned about if you're doing a Teams call, a Google call, a Zoom call, then all you're literally doing is carrying on as you were before. But when you share your screen, you know, ways you might be sharing a PowerPoint before or Smart Notebook, Active Inspire, then instead you can just open up your Sphere software to your visualizer and share under there. As I say, I think the best example I've had this week is junk modeling. You know, we were junk modeling, so I would be under the visualizer showing the students what I was making, rummaging through the recycling, trying to find out, you know, what's the best thing to make this part of the boat and that part of the boat. At the same time, I had students at home watching what I was doing, getting the same sort of ideas and doing it there. At the same time as that, I've got 5 students in the classroom with me, going through everything on the table, doing the same. So it's a really, really good tool to be using in lockdown or after lockdown. So just wanted to give you a bit of a brief overview, really. But that's it from me. I don't want to take up too much time because I think it's Rob's turn next. So I'll hand over to Rob from LBQ. But thanks very much, all.
Thanks very much. So share screen, Gary.
Yeah, we can see it, Rob.
Everyone okay now?
Yeah, Brill.
I'm Rob Powell. I used to be a secondary head in Stoke-on-Trent, and since I left the headship, I've actually been an author and a consultant working with schools around the country. And I want to share my passion for learning my questions with you this evening. It's what I've said in my recent book, the best resource I've seen in my 40 years in the profession. LBQ was founded by Tony Khan, who is the original founder of the Promethean Whiteboard company. And I've known Tony for over 20 years. In 2018, he asked me to go up to Blackburn to meet him. He said, I've got a new project called LBQ and I'd like to tell you about it. When he actually outlined his vision to me, I was a bit skeptical because I thought it was a bit ambitious and I didn't know if he'd realize it or not. He said, we're going to produce a cloud-based technology where questions are not answered by the students in books, but on tablets, laptops and computers. He said there'll be extensive content. And if I told you today there's 90,000 plus questions and 3,000 sets of questions, he said that will also save on teaching workload for planning. He said the question sets will not just be quiz questions, which are very valuable on occasions, but will have progression built in. So for example, in the maths, you move from basic understanding to mastery. He said these questions, when the students are working on them, will offer real-time feedback to teachers and students, and that will support the development of responsive teaching, enable teachers to respond live to misconceptions and to the needs of students as they happen in the classroom. And finally, he said, we're actually also going to actually do an analysis and marking and all the data stuff electronically. So that saves teachers workload on actually compiling all the marking. I love Chris earlier saying how he's actually reduced his marking by doing verbal feedback. Now in 2018, this was designed for classroom use, of course, but now it's being widely used for remote learning. I've followed LBQ now for 3 years. Initially, there were 50 pilot schools in England and Northern Ireland who tried the technology and gave feedback to the developers. Tony and I agreed that I would follow the pilot 12 months, and actually I observed lessons in 8 schools. I watched the lessons, I talked to the teachers, I talked to the TAs. I've had sort of nearly 200 submissions from pupils, and I spoke to the heads as well. And I wrote a book about that particular pilot period for the launch of LBQ in October 2018. I've now actually observed over 60 hours of LBQ lessons. We set up a trial with Stoke-on-Trent and Stafford schools, which actually ran for 6 months. And I've now seen it also in the FE college. I work with a college in North Wales where it's being used by 15 lecturers in the English and maths teams working with basic skills in adults and with GCSE resits, which everyone who's ever taught in FE will know are very difficult to teach. My skepticism has disappeared. I was skeptical initially, but I've actually watched everywhere I go engage students. 60 hours of lessons, and I've only seen 1 student misbehave. Everyone else is but not only behaving, but on task. The attainment levels that some of the schools have achieved is amazing, although the data obviously is missing because we've not had data from schools in the past 2 years. The staff motivation is huge. Not only is most of the planning already done for them, but they actually don't have to mark and their analysis done for them. But more importantly, they're actually spending time in dialogue with students in the classroom, and they're highly motivated and the well-being is improving. Now, the other thing I love about LBQ is the teachers are in control. It doesn't actually determine how you use it. I've seen it being used by some teachers for retrieval practice as a starter. I've seen it being used at the end of a lesson in a plenary. Other teachers make it the main part of the lesson. Others use it for review and assessment. The very first lesson I ever saw was a teacher in Bolton who actually spent 20 minutes teaching percentages, and actually was class teaching for 20 minutes. He was modeling on the whiteboard. He was doing questioning with the class. He was getting small group discussion. Then, when they would have been into exercise books, he gave them the LBQ questions and used that 20 minutes to see how much they'd understood. He then actually drew attention to the areas where they'd had misconceptions and did some more teaching. And then he finished with an LBQ assessment so that he could actually plan for next lesson. In another lesson, I watched one teacher begin with prior learning. She actually used a question set from an earlier age group to see what they could remember. She then actually used the feedback from that to teach for 20 minutes, and then they finished again. And the other thing I love about the LBQ is there's no algorithms deciding what question the child will do next. It's intelligent teachers making decisions, not intelligent computers. Just one thing on this, I'm leaving this and you'll get the handout so you can look at this in more detail. Just show you just one school, bottom of the league tables, year after year after year in Bolton. It's Washacre Primary School in Bolton. And the teacher there joined in 2018. In 2018, 58% in the SATs were getting the expected in maths. In 2019, after a year of LBQ, is 85%. Greater depth in maths, 0% in 2018, 31% in 2019. Reading, 39% and 69%. Greater depth, 0%, 15%. And if you look at another school in a very, very disadvantaged area of Birkenhead, they've closed their attainment gap between the advantaged and disadvantaged students by 12.3% by using LBQ. And they're certain that that's the thing that does it. Now, when you look at the content, it's all aligned for those of you who are primary sector with the White Rose Maths curriculum. LBQ has been described by White Rose Maths as the best content they've seen in any technology product. And if I just show you here exactly how this is, we look at the subjects there, there's actually only those subjects at the moment. Geography and history, I have to tell you, are actually reading through geography in the primary sector and reading and comprehension through history. And there's also reading and comprehension through science. But if we actually quickly look at how you get into it, once you're actually into the LBQ site, and if you register for a free trial, you can try all this out yourselves. You go to mathematics in the primary sector, and you've got the menu on the left. So for example, if you decided you want to do addition and subtraction, you can scroll down and see all the different choices. Let's choose add and subtract numbers up to 4 digits in the column method. And those appear. Now, interesting thing, you can click on there, preview, and you can actually look at the questions before you use them to check they're the right ones for your class. Just look at the illustrations here. The LBQ full-time illustrators, so all the representations you need for maths are there. The same with science and English as well. But basically, if you go back to, excuse me, get rid of that. We have the same if you go to secondary biology, for example. Once again, you get the left on the left-hand side. If you just tick on ecology, that's what you want to look at. Not only do you have the Key Stage 3, 7, 8, 9 result activities and questions, but for example, how do you do practicals at the moment? Well, there's actually some here with data included for you, so the students can go through the process. There's actually required practicals for the scientists here as well. So when you go back to the LBQ, it's actually there for you. Now, what I'm actually going to do is actually not do any questions now, but can I actually just show you what happens if you wanted to do a question? Let's go to the mathematics. Let's go to the addition and subtraction again. We've decided to do this one now, just to show how easy it is for users, for the students. I'm going to do that set of questions. I click on start. Now, there's two choices here. Once you actually have a full license, those of you who decide to take out a trial license will click in formal class. If you clicked track classes, the latest technology they've produced allows you to track students across all their topics over a whole term, a whole year, identifying gaps, identifying strengths, looking at the weaknesses, so that you actually contribute to your professional judgment about who's on target and who's not. But let's go into informal class. I want to show you one other thing here. The time comes up with when the lesson will finish. So this lesson's set to finish at 9:05. If you wanted the students to work at home, because you're not having a timetable day in your school, but just they've got to do the work during the day at some point, you can click that to 23:55. And that set of questions will be available throughout the day, right through to midnight. So any of you now who actually are watching this and you're quite interested in this, you want to have a look. When I clicked informal class and I say start, that's TNT webinar, Make a note, please, now, for those of you who want to try this later, 8962, and you'll be able to have a go at that particular set of adding and subtracting up to 4 digits. And the time is set to finish at 23:55. So just 8962, go to lbq.org/task, and you later can do that set of questions. There they are. Now I'm going to go back now and actually just show you what it might look like once the teachers start. When they start work, the teacher has a matrix on their screen, and the TA might have this as well, and some schools actually allow student helpers to actually look at this screen as well. Anything in green, and question 1 means they got it right. You've nothing to do. It's the first time, they got it right first time. Anything in amber tells the teacher they made a mistake first time and got actually some feedback and got it right second time. If you see a red, it means they've got it wrong. And this child, pupil 26, and obviously you can have the names on there as well if you choose to. Sorry, I got to go back now where I was. Go back to it again. Sorry about this. Let's go back to the screen. Anything in actually red as it actually means they got that twice wrong. Now, if you look at this one here, red 4, that for me is saying we need to intervene. And the real power, the thing that really threw me when I first started watching it, is the number of one-to-one and small group interactions that teachers and TAs took part in during the lesson, responding to need at the moment it happened. So for example, one of the things that actually the software allows you to do, there's a pause button. And if anyone has ever worked with students in a classroom when they're on computers or tablets, and you want to talk to them, they ignore you. What we came up with, or the LBQ team came up with, is a pause button. So you freeze the tablets. They can't work on them. The teacher wants to talk. And if you look down at question 17, if you look downwards, you can see that actually there's quite a few people here getting this wrong. What I'm going to do is pause and reteach that one, that question. I can bring the question up on the screen. I think I'll do the same at question 22 as well, down here. And I think I'll actually do that same on 26 because there's loads of people having difficulties here. I'm going to do one-to-one intervention here with people 24 at that point there. I might do a small group intervention with these here. And one of the powerful things about this is for the secondary teachers in England, for those who don't know this, the guidance from our government is the teachers mustn't leave their desk to wander the room. You can't look over shoulders and see who's having a problem. So in these subjects, English, maths and science here, you can see who has a problem. You can actually use the visualizer or whatever you have to actually give feedback to the people who need the help. But if you actually go downwards, you see the problem, the issue of progression. Now this is actually based in mastery in maths. So there's actually 10 questions on understanding, adding and subtracting, and then you go into fluency. And in the fluency questions, along with the mastery philosophy, some of the scaffolding to support the student is withdrawn. They then move into reasoning and to problem solving. Now, if you go back to this page here, you'll see that actually this child here has actually not done the last 3, because the software is designed to say that if you actually get 7 right in any one of these sections, you'll move on automatically to the next one. The other option, of course, for teachers, if you knew that, for example, one child, or this child here, for example, you can see towards the bottom, pupil 22 at the bottom, 7 greens. If you actually knew that in advance, this child's likely to find this easy, one of the things you can do with the software is open up 2 sets of questions rather than just 1. And the second set could actually be starting with fluency. So in your class, some students will start on question 11, not on question 1. In theory, you could actually have a 3rd set open and get some students who are high flyers starting on the reasoning questions. So that's actually the flexibility of it, and the power here, which is the real thing, which I'd like to talk about towards the end, is the intervention live in the classroom at the moment that children need the help. When they actually do get a question right, they get feedback. Even if they get it right, they get feedback. And this one actually just says correct, and it reinforces the method. If you make a mistake, the students get a personalized message back. And that message is actually dependent on what answer you've given. It's not a standard incorrect with the same guidance. The guidance depends on what you've done wrong. And the interesting thing about that is one of the students actually said to me in one of the lessons I was watching, I love getting private feedback, sir, because no one else knows I've made a mistake. And all the teachers listening now will know that that problem of questioning in the class is not easy when some students are shy of answering in front of their peers. Some schools, this is one in America, in Atlanta, in Georgia, they're using it with pairs and small groups. They don't do individual. The students work in groups. Look at this student who's just got a feedback saying correct, punching the air. These two students working together, high-fiving because they just solved the problem. And the important thing about that is the students' motivation engagement is amazing. Now, the analysis of the students' progress at the end of the test, the assessment, whatever you want to call it, it does an analysis for you. You can find out what questions you need to look at, which questions were done well, which questions weren't done badly. And the class track, which is for the full registration team, people who've got registration, they can actually do an analysis of the data, identify the progress, look at the gaps and the needs of students. Now, I said at the beginning, it was the best resource I've seen in my long career. Was I biased? Well, I'm sure you think I was, but let's see what other people thought. For those who are not from England, in 2019, the BET show, which is the annual technology show, they have a huge one in the US, it won the top award, the Innovator of the Year. Tony Khan, the founder, won the Outstanding Achievement Award that year. In the same year, the Educational Resources Association, their conference, it won the Best Secondary Resource with ICT. 2020, Best Secondary Content. And in 2020 also, in March, the Teach Primary, they gave 3 awards, a 5-star, a 4-star and a 3-star award for their subjects. And it won the 5-star award for primary maths. This year, the awards aren't until June, and they're nominated for 3, primary content, secondary content, and digital content. What I love about LBQ is when I make a mistake, only my teacher and I know. That is so powerful. And yet the thing that I want to focus on in the last bit, please, is intervention. You may not be maths, English or science, but one of the things I've just written in one of the books I've published is that we need to move away from marking, from data analysis, from endless planning. And the interesting thing about it is that if we actually do what Chris was talking about earlier, which is have more oral feedback, verbal feedback, and actually we can actually reduce the workload and we can actually keep our best teachers in the classroom. Intervention after the marking is too late. Feedback need to replace marking policies with feedback policies. We need to make sure that actually if there's no verbal feedback, there's no technology for verbal feedback, we need to actually develop self-assessment, peer assessment, whole class feedback. It's interesting, a lot of people are using visualizers for doing that, where they're taking examples of students' work, putting them onto the screen like we saw earlier, and then actually getting the class to debate what's good or bad about it, how it could be improved. Flipped learning needs to become more and more important, because where do we find time for dialogue? By getting students to work independently, doing research, working in small groups, in breakout rooms, and so on. And the basic thing I'd like to show is there's going to be 10 books given away tonight. I've just published it. It's a live feedback book. It looks at actually how we can raise pupil attainment, how we can reduce teacher workload, improve well-being, and the top first 10 people to sign up for a free trial of LBQ will actually get a copy of that book. There's the summary if you've got to report back to any of your colleagues in school. Okay, if you want a free obligation trial for 30 days and you actually get online support, please just go to my website here, select contact, complete the form, and if you want on there also is the option of actually taking out a trial. So please have a look at it. I think it's the best thing I've seen in the classroom for real teaching and learning, and that's the end of mine. So I'll hand back to Gary now.
Okay, thank you very much, Rob, for that. I know Avril's used it as well. Sorry, let me come back. Avril's used it quite a bit as well, and took out the trial, and she's absolutely loved it. Avril, do you just want to explain this bit? Oh no, sorry, I'll do this bit. So what we always like to do in our webinars is we like to just give you some further reading, So Rob's book's there on live feedback. Doug Lemonov, who did the Teach Like a Champion stuff, I listened to his book, Teaching in the Online Classroom. It's quite a new book that's out. It's also a podcast. It was really useful. There's loads of good ideas in there. And then also Matt Miller, some of you may use Google, might have read some of his stuff about Ditch That Textbook. He's brought a recent book out called Tech Like a Pirate. Some really good stuff in there. There's also some links to some research from Ofsted and from the Education Endowment Foundation with best practices for remote learning. And then the Edtech demonstrator program in the UK, they've also do webinars. They've got a list on the website of webinars they do every week on all different things which you might find useful. And they also have videos and recordings of all those as well. So you might want to check that out.
Okay, so just wanted to give a massive thank you to Elementary Technology for supporting us throughout since our first webinar, and also our panelists this evening, to Robert, Ricky, Fraser and Chris. So thank you very much. We're overwhelmed with your offer of support, and it's been brilliant for you to step in and help us out with our webinars. So thank you very much, everybody. And also thank you very much to the companies who've offered us some prizes as well to go out tonight.
Okay, and just the winners from our last webinar in December, we had, you can see on the screen there, a few winners of different things. So Mood Stars and donation to charity in the TESS annual subscription. So well done to all those people who won those prizes. What we always like to do at the end of our webinars is do some competitions. So tonight we've got quite a few prizes to give away. And for most of them, all you need to do is fill in the feedback form. I'll copy and paste this into the chat as well. But when you leave the webinar or when you've signed up, it should automatically load in your browser anyway. If you fill that in, you'll be entered into the competitions. So we've got from Elementary Technology a free one prize of a visualizer that you can have for yourself, plus some free training session, online training session. We've got 5 unlimited licenses for Mote, which Chris was talking about, to give away. We've got 10 copies of the live feedback book from Rob. That's if you sign up for the free trial of Learning by Questions at the end of the webinar. We've got a company called Wally Finch, who are in America. They've kindly donated us some gift box of nice socks, especially it's cold at the moment in winter, especially in the UK. Some nice luxury socks there to give away. And then we've also got some copies of our last presenter in December, Max and Jackson's book, Happy School 365, Bloomsbury Education, have given us some of those. So all you have to do is fill in the feedback, and you've got till Sunday the 21st, and then we'll announce the winners the week after on our social media.
Okay, so if you want to join us on Facebook or tag us in Twitter or watch this webinar or some of our other webinars, you can get those on our YouTube channel. So just take a note of those if you want to have a look later.
Okay, and finally we've had a few questions from people coming in. So guys who presented, you might be able to help us out with some of these. What a question for Fraser. What kind of visualizer were you using, Fraser?
So I was using a Ava visualizer. So that any of the Ava visualizers come with the software that you saw. There's quite a few different ones. I'd probably say what you want to do is look at the sort of later ones, because they've now got wireless ones. Generally they're wired ones, but the nice thing about having a wireless one is they're battery powered, so you can plug it in and charge it, but it's completely wireless, so you can take it around the class. So it sort of adds a new dynamic to having it. But yeah, Ava visualizers, give us a shout if you want to know anything more about them.
Yeah, thank you. Question from Sarah. She's just talking about which ones can we use in Microsoft Teams. So all the stuff we can use, we showed tonight, the online tools and stuff, they're independent of Google or Microsoft Teams. So what you would do is, if, for example, the ones at the beginning, you would just copy the code in your Teams meeting that you had with your students, and they'll be able to join and still listen to you while they're in a Google meeting or a Zoom meeting or a Teams meeting. So you can use any of those independently. You don't have to use a specific platform. Yes, we will do certificates. If you just email us on this email address, if you do want a certificate for attending tonight, we will send those out to you. Just a question on GDPR. obviously with GDPR, you have to check whether the company that you're using the software from has a data center in Europe. If they do have a data center in Europe, like Microsoft and Google, they all have data centers, then they comply to GDPR. If they're not, then you just have to check that with your school and making sure that you have permission to use it to put student data. But some of the things we showed tonight, you don't necessarily have to put set up classes with student data or anything like that. They just log on and just put the first name in, and then it doesn't store the complete full name or anything like that. So quite a lot of them you can just do off the cuff. And just another one, can you recommend a visualizer to buy, Fraser?
Oops, I have to be off mute, don't I? That helps. Recommend a visualizer to buy? Yes, I will go and grab one for you. 2 secs.
I will just, while you're doing that, Fraser, I will just copy and paste the link.
So this is the Ava one that I was using. There are a few different ones like this, and the Ava M17 is probably my favourite. That sounds sad, doesn't it, really, to have a favourite visualizer? But yeah, if you visit our visualizer shop online, the elementary one, we've got all of them on there. But that was my favourite, the M17, because it's got a optical zoom. So what you would have seen me doing before, I was zooming in on a lot of things. With an optical zoom, you don't lose any of the quality as you zoom in, which is really important. Some of the other ones, some of the cheaper ones, they don't have an optical zoom. So every time you zoom in, the picture just gets worse and worse. So yeah, have a look at the M17. That would be my choice.
Okay, thank you very much. And I think that's it. I'm just going to put this link into the chat for the competitions. So again, please fill in that. At the end of the questionnaire, there is a question about if you want to get in touch or more details from Ricky, from Chris, from Rob, or from Fraser. If you just tick one of those boxes, or all 3 of the boxes, we'll pass on your email to them, and they'll get in touch with you if you want more information about anything we talked about tonight. So thank you very much, everyone, for joining us, and hope you found it useful. Sorry we've overrun a little bit. We will send a recording of this to your email, so please check your junk email as well, because sometimes it can end up in there. Thank you, everyone, for joining us. Thanks, Rob. Thanks, Ricky. Thanks, Chris. Thanks, Fraser. Thanks, Dave. And thanks, Avril. And hopefully we'll see you all soon.
Thanks, Gary.
Thanks, everybody. Keep well.
Take care.
See you later.
Bye.